exclusive hot new mix. Hot shit. Hot shit. Let's go. Go.
Cop shot somebody else, Papo. Yes, indeed.
Guess the race.
Guess the race of the cop and guess the race of the person that got shot. Now,
And of course, it had to have happened in Chicago. I mean, there's no other place that they.
Oh, Chicago. So in the latest case, and actually let me share the screen, in the latest case of an innocent black person being gunned down, police Jemel Roberson, who was an armed security guard for Manny's Blue Room Bar in Robbins, Illinois, was on duty when a group of intoxicated men were asked to leave. One of the men returned armed, and Jemel was able to restrain the gentleman before things got out of hand. Now, reports from WGN9 says he had somebody on the ground with his knee in back with his gun, and the guy's back like, don't move. And this was Adam Harris who says this. Then two police officers arrived on the scene, and before asking questions, saw a black man holding a gentleman down on the ground, and they shot the security guard dead. Now, the witnesses says that everybody was screaming out. He was a security guard, and they basically saw a black man with a gun and killed him. He was just doing his job and had managed to do so without using fatal force, as the 4 people wounded had only non-fatal injuries. No reports yet on if there will be investigation. Now, I gotta pick on Papo. We had this conversation last week about good guys with guns.
I knew you were gonna bring this up. Well, mind you, I said if everyone had the guns, and I didn't think I had to give you the caveat: don't be the black man holding the gun, because come on now, do you realize what's going on?
So the caveat is good guys with guns, but they have to be white Christian heterosexuals with guns to protect everyone, because no one else can protect.
Hey, whatever you keep in the closet is an old man's skeletons, but I'm just saying, if you really want to make sure that you cover your bases and you don't have to throw a monkey wrench in here, and I say monkey wrench because monkeyness being any kind of racial slur, but I'm just saying, like, it's yes, and yes. So really quickly, I want to share this picture, man. This right here broke my heart, because this is a picture of his baby.
Kid. Yeah,
and I know that's just a ploy to get more feels out of this bitch, but truly though, again, I think that's another matter of what's wrong when we kind of just jump into situations, and again, being so used to the black man being the bad guy, and I mean let's just call it what it is, or the threat.
But see, and then that's the issue, and that's what a lot of black people have said over time, is the idea of the black man as so the white man created this myth of the dangerous, scary black man, and then now he's killing the black man off of the myth that he started. This goes back to slavery times. It was like, we got to enslave these black people because they're savages, and just like with the Native Americans and Pilgrims, you got to kill them because they're savages. And it's like, no, they live a different type of culture than yours. That doesn't make them a savage. They just have a different culture than yours. And so we have America that's created this myth of this whole time or whatever of how dangerous and scary black people should be. Oh, you just gotta be terrified of them. And then now this is the direct result of every time you see a black person, you shoot and kill them because you're terrified of all of them. And I wish the conservatives would just come out and admit we're terrified of black people. Just say that. Then we could try to figure out how to mend this fence or whatever. But as long as it's no, it's the black people, it's always their fault or whatever. Here's an innocent black man trying to do his job, trying to help people, and yet again, he was a scary black man. And so when you're in an instance where whether you're innocent, whether you're a criminal, you're always a scary black person, whether you're a postal worker or you're an armed security guard, or whether you're like Philando Castile who has a registered gun, when you're always the scary black guy or whatever, this is always going to be the result. We're always going to get shot and gunned down. And again, it was a myth that was put out. And going back to the reason why marijuana got made illegal to begin with. Marijuana was not an issue in the early 1900s, and then they started doing political campaigns. Oh, well, when black people smoke marijuana, they rape white women, and oh my God, I don't want that to happen. Let me vote against it. Oh my God. And so again, it's white people creating this myth. It's to turn the black man into this big scary boogeyman, and then now this is a direct result of them killing black people because of the own myth that they started.
When into devils, of course you're gonna get crusaders are gonna try to, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and then like it breaks down when they always say the thing about how what is it? It's something like 80% of black people were killed by other black people, and it's like, yeah, that goes with every race. The majority of white people kill white people. The majority of Mexican people kill Mexican people because you kill the person that's near to you. That's the reason why there was that other study where when you get married, you are now living with the person most likely to kill you. Because it's who is the closest to you is who is more likely to kill you. And that's the reason why none of those stats make sense or whatever and all that. Yeah, black people predominantly live next to each other. So if there is an issue, that's who's going to get killed, the person next to you.
Yo, it's so funny though. And I'm wondering how it, and from like a master puppet kind of scenario, how it works, where certain demographics will not only cater to but also be a holding pot to certain races. Like for example, at the new gig, work with someone. She comes from like Bullhead City or what have you, right? And her dude's black, and for whatever reason, when his dude decided to move into the city, right there in Ahwatukee, happened to be in a community that's just like primarily black. I'm thinking to myself, like, how does that work? Am I just noticing it, or like is it just like there's just certain places that kind of are melting pots, or is it a matter of demographics? I have no idea, but legit, I went to to this area and it was just no black folks around. I'm like, how did that work?
That's interesting.
Was there like some? Was there like, did they read a posting from blackplanet.com that said, this is a pretty stable place?
No, and that's I don't know, and that's like migration patterns or whatever, and then that's also what happens when you have gentrification in certain areas. And so you'll have a certain area that gets gentrified, they bring in the Starbucks, they bring in all these other businesses, they hike up the rent, so then the minorities who already live in that area can't afford it anymore, so then they end up moving. And so that could be an example of, depending on how long that neighborhood in Ahwatukee has been there, there's a scenario that would be plausible when they started gentrifying South Phoenix, that maybe some of those people moved out to Ahwatukee. I mean, there's kind of no telling, but yeah, things happen.
I am mad curious though how that works, just considering, because mind you, I can see how locations out there, in PA or in New York or out in Chicago, where they gentrify these, again, houses made out of brick that, are super hipstery, by afterthought of design. I'm wondering, could that ever help in the South Phoenix though? Or is that just too ghetto? Like to where it loses its hipster touch that, whatever kind of millennial would want to flip on its side to want to be ironic, like,
all they end up doing is just the old neighborhoods. You eventually reach a point where you do certain things to hike up the rent or so on and so forth, to then get rid of all that old stuff and then build up all new stuff. I know there is a place, dang, I can't remember if that's 16th Street or what, but when you're heading towards downtown Phoenix, towards like Chasefield, there was a house it was like one house, and it was in like this dirt field, and it's just this one house or whatever on this kind of busy road. And so they were building a Jack in the Box in that area. And so from what I heard, they were trying to buy out the person to get them out there so then they could build the Jack in the Box there. And the person didn't want to move because that's their area. They've been there living in that house for God knows how long. And nowadays, when you go to that area, that house is still there and that Jack in the Box is there. But what they did was they built the Jack in the Box on the left side of the house, and then the drive-through Jack in the Box starts on the right side of the house. And so the drive-through goes around the back of the house in the Jack in the Box. And so they just literally, basically, this house is on the parking lot of this Jack in the Box now. And that is a case of this is big bank takes little bank. So you do something like that to hope that it's inconvenient for the person that lives there at their home, so then they can finally one day buckle down and leave. And then, okay, now we can mow you down and now we got more parking space or whatever. And that's the American way that we live in, because those people in that house, they don't have the lawyers to fight that. Like, anybody can look at that and see that that's completely and utterly absurd, but Jack in the Box has more money than them. So that's how it goes. And so that's normally how gentrification in different areas go. They do all kinds of random stuff to get those people out of those environments, and then you hike up the rent, so on and so forth, and either those people are trapped in there paying those extra amount of rents because they can't move out anywhere, or eventually they do end up moving, and then you could mow down all those houses put new houses in, and then people are happy. Like the apartment complex my mom is at now, they're trying to gentrify it. They've repainted it, they've put a brand new name on it, and they've been changing the rent, they've been doing all these things. So now more than ever, there's way more like these like college white kids that live in the same apartment complex as her. And it's hilarious because like it's like we're in the hood right now, but they slapped a new coat of paint on there and gave it a new name, and now these white people are moving in or whatever, and it's gentrification. And so they've been trying to get my mom the fuck out of that apartment complex for a while now, because the rent is much higher for all these other people, but my mom has been there for a while, so she's paying a certain amount of rent. So they keep trying to hike it up and keep trying to do all these different things to fuck with her, because they want to get her the fuck out so they could make room for more of these young white kids. And that's gentrification. That's how it works.
Yeah, and she's just renting, right? She doesn't own like
no, it's an apartment complex. So
I was gonna say, I'm like, man, like if I could be given a little healthy slab, like, man, I don't know, maybe I'm just too eager to get the fuck out of Dodge. And how we jump from that to, like, again, just them power driving on this poor brother out in Illinois, man. Like,
yeah, and again, yeah, shouts out. Hopefully they do some type of investigation, and again, until America will admit that it has a race problem, we're always going to have this issue. America needs to admit that there's a race problem that we need to address. And as long as you have certain people who keep with the, oh, well, I'm colorblind, I don't see race, colorblind. As long as we keep saying bullshit like that, we're never going to come to a realization. Because again, show me an incident of a armed white security guard saving the day and cops coming in just shooting him. Like, for me to not take this as he got gunned down by being a black person, instead of just saying that, oh, you're a black person, you turn this into a race thing, well, show me an instance of something like this happening to a white person. And then we could see that, oh, okay, so maybe it's not a race thing, maybe it's a police training thing or whatever. But as of right now, this is a race thing. You see a black person, you're scared of a black person, you gun them down. So I need evidence of seeing this happening to other people.
Now, do you think it's gonna have to be a training matter, or like it's weird almost to kind of think of what came first, the chicken or the egg kind of situation, to where is it a matter of fear, is it a matter of lack of training, or is it a matter of the fact that you see this being so common, you already know that's public enemy number one?
And I say training for lack of a better term, because I don't think it's training per se. I think it's, and I use Fox News as an example. Fox News was created in the 1980s as a propaganda machine to push the viewpoint of Robert Murdoch. And one of the viewpoints that he wanted to push was that black people, or that minorities in general, are dangerous, and that's, you should always be scared of everyone who doesn't look and think like you. And so you have and I think that's the reason why. So Fox started in the 80s. So that was what, 30, almost 40 years ago. And so now the people that grew up watching that are the people who are the cops of today. So no reason they're gunning down black people, because they grew up watching the news tell them how dangerous and scary black people are. So you always got to look at how this generation, how this is going to affect the next generation of people. So the generation of people that grew up on Fox News, oh, scary black people, of course, now that they're in the positions of power, they're continuing the process of gunning down black people. So I think, like, we could talk training and diversity training all day, but what it genuinely comes down to is, unfortunately, we live in a world where too many white people are deadly afraid of black people, and we need to figure out why that is. And it goes back to, me and Skips have joked about this. Back when the Trayvon Martin thing happened, one of the greatest news clips ever was after the Trayvon Martin thing happened, and then the NRA, always gets involved about, people, oh, well, if the person was armed, they wouldn't have died. If this person got armed, they wouldn't have died. And when the Trayvon Martin thing happened, Tavis Smiley was on the Bill O'Reilly show, and he was like, why don't I see the NRA coming out saying that Trayvon Martin should have had a gun on him, he would have been safe. And Bill O'Reilly is debating with him and all that.
Every clip in his black ass if he would have had a gun. Every clip.
And that would have been more of a reason why That would have been more of a reason why they need to gun them down. But the NRA always says that oh, well, if more people had guns, you know, things like this wouldn't happen. So Tavis Smiley had asked Bill O'Reilly that, and Bill O'Reilly was like, well, you know, he really didn't have nothing to say to it. And so Tavis Smiley was like, you know, because we talk about the Second Amendment all the time, and he was like, since, you know, white people keep saying, make sure you have a gun, he was like, I'm calling for every black person in America to start making sure that they're armed. And Bill O'Reilly was like, hey, well, you slow down right now. You slow down. And it was just hilarious. It was like, we talked this Second Amendment and everybody having a gun, but the second a black person starts saying it's like, hey, slow down. And the reason why I genuinely believe is because, and this is what I think we're seeing in the world today with MAGA and with this Donald Trump and all that, you have a lot of white people who are terrified that if black people or minorities get in a position of power, they're going to treat the white people how the white people have treated them for so long. And so I think there's a lot of white people who are aware of them being in a position of power and how they're bullying everyone else. And that's the fear of minorities becoming in power, because, oh my God, they're going to start doing that to us. And that's the reason why that's the fear of, oh, if all the black people get guns, then they're going to try to enslave the white people. And that's the reason why anytime you hear this BS about a race war and all this, it's always white people who say it. White people are the only one talking about a race war. I literally have a family of black people. We've never talked about a race war. Nothing of any sort has ever crossed our mind, but you have a lot of these white people who are on 4chan terrified of this race war, and it's this imaginary war in their head because they think that what they've done to everyone else is one day going to happen to them.
So then that's like the guilt effect. Then that's like the, you know what I'm saying, the cathedral problem of just again being so guilty in the sin, again knowing that you've been getting by. Because I've noticed a lot of people, whether they want to pass it on as being hashtag woke or just being conscientious of your privilege, a lot of white people sometimes, mainly celebrities, whoever is PR savvy, you know, makes reference to being again not of affluent nature, but being, you know, very again, not biases, but again, knowing that they've gotten by, they have it easier than most. So I feel like when people give that little shout out, I'm not too sure if that gives them a bit of culture. I'm not too sure if that gives them a sense of understanding, or again, it's just their way of saying, look, I'm about to say some real spoiled shit right now, but let me caveat or preface by saying it's because I'm very privileged and I'm very lucky, you know, hashtag blessed, things of that nature. But I am wondering though, with I already lost my train of thought. Am I going my loop-to-loop rant around?
No, I was going to say, I think it's a little bit of both. I think you have some celebrities who, you have some white people who genuinely do see that, like, oh, wait, there is a such thing as white supremacy, if you will, and there is a system that I benefit from. And so you have some people that do that and say that because they actually see what's going on. Then you have some people who they'll say it just because it's the cool thing that everyone's supposed to say nowadays. And then you have some people who just hop on the bandwagon or whatever because they want to be liked or whatnot. So there's a multitude of reasons.
Do you remember the hood classic? Don't drink your juice. Don't be a menace South Central while drinking your juice in the hood.
Yes.
There was Nassim Alaikum brother who remember he was the outrageous, you know what I'm saying, Farrakhan like Islam brother from the crew. Yeah. And I remember him giving this speech. He's like, I'm going to do to the white woman what they've been doing to us for 400 years. And then, of course, interjection of ignorance. Yeah, what's that? He's like, fuck them. So there's just that, there's that essence to where, like, and again, and I feel like any single time that you see, like, an insecurity in someone, it's almost an admission of guilt because, you know, they might be, I don't know how it plays off. And I know every scenario is different, everything's case by case, but I do wonder, like, you know, when there's a bit of guilt that you kind of throw out a crazy accusation because maybe you might have felt that way, or, you know what I'm saying, it's definitely across your mind. And maybe, again, being that we can acknowledge how messed up things are and whether or not we want to admit them, they're going to play on our conscience one way or another. So again, it is going to create like a little, you know, if not an avalanche, at least a downpour of fear because, we're really being messed up, but I'm really benefiting from this, so I really can't complain. So again, imagine again how bad I don't know. People want to believe in karma when it works for them, and when it doesn't, you know, you want to call it BS. Yeah. But when are you right? You know, and when is it?
Yeah.
When does that time come?
If you didn't like this podcast, it's probably cause you're racist.
Yeah.
Fuck your feelings though.
Yeah. What's up, man? You hear me?